In former times, a business was optimized to generate as much profit as possible to its owners. Today, a business does not only have to provide profit to its owners, but it also has to provide value to all the other people around it or inside it, to all the stakeholders, and even to nature. For the sustainability strategy development process, we need to note down all the stakeholders that are involved inside a business or around it. I want to share with you which methods I like to use for this. In the first step, we want to note down all the internal and external stakeholders that we can think of. That might be employees, the management, any trade associations, it might be NGOs or the media, general public, customers of course, and competitors, anyone you could think of. I found it quite useful to search for those stakeholders in competitors' sustainability reports because they noted down those very well. So I could have a look there, get all of those as well, and think about whether there's anyone missing. In the second step, we want to find out how our business is impacting them and how they are impacting our business. Here, I found that the usual business process of mapping down stakeholders does not work very well for me. I think there's lacking a lot of information which I would need for my sustainability strategy development. Usually you would draw impact on stakeholders over power of stakeholders and then sort them all in. And then you would divide the grid by 4 and determine with that method how you will treat them. However, I have some issues with that method because I might have stakeholders which as a group might have a certain power and might be impacted by a certain way. However, I might not want to treat everyone in that group the same way. I might need some people of that group to be more involved in my strategy and others to be just informed. So here's what I usually use when I do a stakeholder mapping. And this is where I get much more information and then I can really use that later in the process. I am using a simple template and I am using one template per stakeholder group. That makes it much easier for me to work with it and to develop strategies on how to work with those stakeholders. The first 2 steps are quite similar to the normal method. And the first step is that I note down the impact the company has on them, and here I get specific. And then I rate it. So that's the step that is done in the normal method. Then I find out about the power they have over the company and note that down as well. And I also rate it. This is quite close to the standard method. However, by noting down the real impacts and the real power they have, I'm getting more specific and I can use that information later. Next, I note down which interests they might have, which worries, and also which risks they might pose to the company or which opportunities they might offer to the company. So here you can get really specific and you can use that. And then wherever necessary, I add subcategories and contacts. And contacts are the most important part of this template because I don't want to talk to stakeholder groups normally. I want to talk to persons within that stakeholder group, so I need those contacts. And I will explain later why that is so important. And then a very recent field addition that I added to this template is that I also note down first ideas about involvement strategies for that stakeholder groups. And here again I can go specific into the subcategories or I can stay quite general depending on the stakeholder group. Now let me give you one example for this template and I will fill it in for one of the easiest groups. That's probably employees, and I will show you what I would note down. How are employees impacted by the companies? They expect job security and they also expect their salaries. But then there are other points. They want to work in a nice atmosphere and they don't want to risk their health. So those are the major impacts you can add depending on your company, and there might be some things that I might have forgotten as well. And I rate the impact of the company on employees quite high, so I give it 3 stars. Now looking at the power of employees. They have the power, of course, to build labor unions, and they have the power to just leave the company. And their power over the company, I would rate somewhere in the middle range. It's about 2 stars. Their interests on the company are that they want to find purpose, they want to identify with the company, and they also want to have a fair employer. That's probably their main interests in the company. They might worry most about losing their jobs or about business ethics, but you might find also other points they might be worrying of. Best to speak to some of them. The risk for the company related to employees are, of course, that they might be leaving the company. So if they leave, the company loses time, they need to find new employees, so that is slowing down in the end. And also unmotivated employees can slow down a whole organization. However, the opportunities are also quite high because motivated employees offer high innovation rates, and the motivation is also great for business opportunities. Subcategories could be leading positions within the employees. It could also be differentiation into white collar and blue collar workers. You will find the categories that fit to your organization. And now the most important step is to note down the persons who represent each of the subcategories. You want to know whom to involve and who to speak to. Once I have noted down all the templates for all the categories, I plan the involvement strategy. And here I start with the inner circle of the task force and the advisory board if there is one. And I would write down the names of the persons representing the categories, not like I did here, the categories, of course. And then I have people that I want to involve closely into the process. I also note down their names, not like you see here the categories. This is just for showing you. I want to involve them closely, maybe in workshops, maybe in feedback rounds, and plan the whole process with them. Then there might be an additional circle depending on the size of your organization, and that is people that I want to involve and also involve in the materiality analysis, so that's why I need to note down their names. But maybe I don't want to involve them as closely as the 2 inner circles. But this is only for bigger corporations. Usually you might only have 3 categories of people. And then the outer circle is people who I just want to inform. That is normally the general public, it can be communities, it can be media. Even having said that, I might also include several people of this category into one of the inner circles. And then to add some fun to all of this, I note down people's attitude to the sustainability strategy. So I know on first sight, and everyone in the team knows on first sight, who's opposing the strategy, who's supporting it, who might be not decided whether positive or negative. And I also note down people who are great supporters, who might be influencing others, and who might be great connectors. Those are the people with the heart in their eyes. This whole process helps you to set up your communication strategy, your involvement plan within the sustainability strategy, and it can also help you to get insights for your materiality assessment. And if you want to find out more about the materiality assessment, I would recommend you look at this video.